Welcome to this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Ryan Vanstone, CEO of Michigan's fast-growing personal injury law firm. It's also most technologically advanced uh, personal injury law firm. Welcome to the show, Ryan.
Thank you, Ajay. How are you?
Very good, Ryan. Welcome to the show. Welcome to India in this online form, Ryan. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are going to talk right now. We'll learn from you about technology in a law firm. Learn about how to make it a fast growing law firm and so many other things also about personal injury law. So, but before that, let's learn a bit more about you, Ryan, about your background, about your journey, so that the listeners know who they are listening to.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I'm in a personal injury space in Michigan, which, if you're out of the country, that's a northern state that looks a little bit like a mitten. But personal injury law is where we help people who've been injured through the negligence or sometimes intentional acts of others. And we seek compensation through the courts, utilizing basically legal tactics that allow us to get favorable results. I own a location in Michigan that has 3 separate locations. We have been expanding rapidly over the past 23 months, and we continue to grow quite a lot into 2025. So, but the background is really straightforward. It's just a lot of legal training, a lot of work in another law firm before I launched my own. And we are here as we sit today having a conversation.
Absolutely having a conversation. So, Ryan, first to help us understand, a lot of people know about injuries, but personal, injury law, not many may be aware of. Even in the US, even in India, in many other places, they don't even know what they can claim damages or compensation for. So, from your point of view, something which a lot of people should know, what is personal injury law? What is personal injury? How would I know whether I can go and get some redressal of any injury to me?
You're bringing me back to like first year of law school, but there's a class in United States law school called tort. Tort is a wrong. That's really all it means. And the court system in the United States allows wrongs to be righted through our civil process. Most people think of courts and we think of crimes. We do something wrong. The government has police or officers that may bring you in and they prosecute you and you can go to jail or have penalties. That in your head, if you separate it, and actually in some of the bigger cities, that's a completely separate building. We're not even in the same building together. What I do is I'm civil. This is where 2 private citizens have a dispute and we resolve it through the court system. Personal injury is a subset of that, which directly relates to physical and mental injuries where you suffer something that takes away something from your life, right? Maybe that's you break a leg because you're on a bike and someone hits you with their car and you break a leg. Well, we have medical bills. We have loss of wages. We have things of loss of time and companionship with your family and others. That's where personal injury really comes in. And we're seeking the only thing we can through the civil system, which is monetary or money for the wrongs that were committed against you due to the fault of another person and not your own. It's a simple way of explaining it. And I think it actually is one of the most simple areas of law, probably why I practice in it. It's not that complex.
Right. Not that complex. So it's only about individual to individual, not against any company. You can't file a personal injury law injury suit against a company. Can we do that?
Really good question. The answer is yes, absolutely. But from the perspective of what is a company is an individual, right? I mean, a company, if you sue a company, you're not suing the owners of that company most of the time. They have the corporate veil. It's a unique independent person. I mean, in the United States, we have a case called Citizens United, which says that actually corporations are entitled to free speech. I mean, they are individuals for purposes of our cases. So if a corporation or their agents, employees, or even someone acting under the veil of that corporation commits a tort, a wrong, negligence, you can certainly pursue a civil action against them. And it's actually probably preferred because they have the deeper pockets, right?
Absolutely. Good to understand that. Why I ask this is because you are Michigan's most technologically advanced and fastest growing litigation firm in injury law. Now, in today's time, third day of 2025, AI coming in, a lot of companies coming in, and in this also there are many companies who are dealing. If I understand, injury is either to body, mind, or emotions. That's what I could found a bit in Google. Correct me if I'm wrong.
You're correct.
From the US law perspective, but now a lot of apps are coming in terms of providing help in terms of mental health, and then people will adopt whatever that happens in the coming days. But if any wrong advice, any sort of injury from those apps happened to me sitting down in India, or even if I were in the US,
Mm-hmm.
could I get get some redressal for this sort of way? Because it's a business, its job is to provide me some help, but it is not doing that. And so can I file? I'm just trying to understand this, especially when we are in 2025. A lot of these services will be about these things.
Yes.
Can I do that? What is your sense?
First and foremost, let me say I'm very pro AI in the legal industry. It's a very controversial topic right now. There's lawyers who feel very different on different ends of it, because some people feel it's a threat to the profession, right? A computer can take over all the complex things that an attorney does. But let's set that aside, because you have a really good question. You're asking a question about legal liability for AI. Specifically, someone says, I am reaching out to AI for assistance with, maybe you mentioned mental health issues, and we've got a therapist who's an AI therapist, and maybe they're not individually licensed, certified, etc. It's not medical advice. It's not under the guise of the certification system of a state. So you're presenting actually a very complex question. Okay, so let's break it down in two parts. And this is going to be super boring, I think, for people listening, but it is interesting to understand, because you can't just say, yeah, we can sue the AI company, because you're talking about a state regulated practice, right? Typically. So for example, if you're a pharmacist, you have pharmacy regulation boards. If you're a doctor, maybe you're an orthopedic surgeon, you've heard of board certified, maybe. I mean, there are regulatory agencies over doctors. There's regulatory agencies over lawyers. We have the State Bar of Michigan. So when you have a clinician who is a computer practicing, you have to get into the definitional aspect of, is that even legal? Because it can't be medical advice, right? It can't be, you can't perform acts of a, let's just call it a mental health behavioral therapist, licensed a psychologist, certainly not a psychologist, but let's just go into what is common, which would be a social worker. They have their own certifications and licenses. So the danger there is, obviously, is a company would need to have the proper disclaimers. A company that desires to use AI to help individuals with, let's call it the 80% most common mental health issues, where people could utilize and would benefit from therapy, but there's a huge barrier to entry, and that's money. It's too expensive, and health insurance and health system won't provide coverage for a lot of mental health services, such as self-help. They'll give you the pill, but they won't give you the person, the talk therapy. Now, let's come back down and narrow it. Your question again is liability for those companies who may give you an AI person who gives bad advice that causes person mental anguish, harm, or maybe even self-harm, right? Maybe it says something that the computer breaks and it glitches and it causes someone on the edge to harm themselves, right? That is protected theoretically by disclaimers, by the company saying, this is just a computer talking to you. This is not real medical advice. It's not regulated. It's not certified, but maybe this could provide some language assistance for you that the AI can do. It can have a conversation and talk to you. And that's the number one thing. And so we call that caveat emptor, right? Buyer beware. So ideally, we have a system where the government steps in. This is my opinion, not fact. That starts to consider and take a real consideration at the benefits that AI could provide, but we've got to regulate it. And I know people don't like more government, but if we're going to be handling some of our more sensitive members of society and giving them great advice, and maybe AI can do that again for the 80%, the common problems that we all share, those commonalities. That's why memes are, I've recently became a father of a young boy, and these memes on Instagram, all of a sudden these parenting memes, like, oh God, it's not just me who's like feeling this way, right? And I think AI can come in, and there's other things too, that angst of the teen, the 20, the 30, 40, 50-year-old, as we go through life challenges. So it's a really long way of answering the question that, because you asked a complex question, and I feel like I didn't even touch the surface of it, but I hope, what's your opinion in general about AI? Like, I mean, let's talk about it from not like AI helping a kid write a paper, but like actually coming in and trying to tackle some of these professional services.
Yeah, it will all be on case to case basis. I think, it's like the profession, any profession that we seek services from, either in legal profession also, even in, medical profession. Why I tell you in legal profession is that you yourself talk about your industry. It's an industry where the customer typically comes last. So if it is like that, the customer has to understand everything. In the same way, in the medicine, earlier, it was considered to be a noble profession. It is today now. But if you ask good questions to your doctor, you will be able to get better outcomes for yourself. The
Agreed.
doctors simply do not have the time. In any other service also, it's the same thing. Even in the legal profession, you got to be updated. Even in artificial intelligence, Ryan, my sense is that you got to be aware exactly what you want to know and how you want to know, and how to evaluate what has been told,
Yeah.
whether that is the best thing, or there is a second opinion. Like in legal profession also, in medical, there's a second opinion, third opinion, even fourth opinion that you may seek. How do I know what I am coming to know from AI is worth immediate following, especially when I do not have the wherewithal to buy higher level services? Am I fit enough to use it? It's like Googling for your medical issues or even for legal issues. So that is why I say you have to be very sure about who you are. AI is for everyone, but what you search, what you look for in AI is not for everyone. They have to be very cautious about it.
It's an
That is what my personal opinion is.
it's an interesting perspective. And if I'm hearing you right, it's like you're kind of saying like AI is almost like, it's like when you go to the grocery store and you know what you need. You got a list, and it versus going in hungry and no plan of action, just starting walking through the aisles, you're screwed, right? And maybe that's a little like AI. I mean, everyone says like you get a little cough, a little soreness in your throat, all of a sudden don't Google it because you know it's throat cancer. I mean, that's what Google tells you. So you're right. It is a little bit, you kind of need a shopping list in a way.
Absolutely, absolutely. So now that is why, because you talk about technology, you talk about including technology in the way your firm is growing. Is the law in the US or other places also, is the law ready for such things, even in personal injury? Is
No.
the law ready for this? Is it updated? The way AI is fast moving technology, if we may want to use a wider word for it, because other places, other people will also start, service providers will also start using the same technology, but there will be a better sense of liability. So is the law up to it?
No.
Also, is the administration up to it? Or
No.
is it that AI is running and the law will be much behind it? Then there will be a big problem. How do you see this part of the personal injury system that is there?
Right now, I'm probably dedicating 20 to 30% of my time every week trying to answer the question you just asked. And I'm obviously not asking on a macro level, like the profession of law. Is Vanstone injury law ready? Because, it's let me put it this way. What I see AI in law is that, number one, luckily because the courts are connected to our practice as a civil litigator. Now, we are so far behind. It would blow your mind to know that I still have courts that won't let me file documents electronically. I have to physically hire someone to drive to the courthouse and hand multiple copies to a clerk and get them physically stamped and then drive back to our office. And this is like thousands of documents, and it's 2025. It's bonkers because e-filing is something that is so common. And now, I mean, attorneys, by the court rules, we can serve each other discovery, which is evidence exchange via email, right? As long as we agree to it. Courts are still doing the same things they were doing in the 1920s. We have to order transcripts. We can't even get electronic transcripts. We have to have someone physically typing it. Then we have to go pick it up, pay for it, certify it. I mean, it's way behind. And that's almost like a good thing because it insulates us, because we know the courts aren't all of a sudden going to turn on AI because they'll be attacked in the sense of, like, from a stance that it won't be as reliable, allegedly. So your question is the legal profession ready for it? Absolutely not. But I don't think the legal profession has been ready for any big technological change. But because of this crucial fact, it's not a huge deal. Eventually, everyone's got to catch up. But here's why it's not a big deal. Only lawyers can own law firms, except for 2 states in the United States. There's a huge, huge distinction, because if you think about it, a tech guy, an entrepreneur who's big into IT, or AI, and could streamline these law firm and just make a law firm and come in with $100 million cannot exist theoretically. And it's super important distinction, because we can't have Silicon Valley, Wall Street, or any other angel investment group come in and just buy a piece of my law firm. There's no such thing as selling equity to non-lawyers, except this is the real threat. It's not AI. It's that in Arizona and Utah, non-lawyers can come in and say, well, one, start to get a peek behind our books and really see that the profit margins are insane if you run it right. They want a piece of that. And now they can under these alternative business structures. There is where AI will probably bleed into earliest, because the big money will come, followed by big money is big tech. And that's where we'll see, I think, Arizona and Utah, you'll see some of the biggest kind of tip of the spear AI stuff related to law. And of course, that's a big way of saying, of course, Michigan, we're not ready for AI in law. We're not, but it's not a big threat, because they can't come in. They cannot come in unless we let them in, let AI in. And right now, I just don't see, unless you can spend the money on the right operational team as non-equity partners, it's really difficult to just overnight flip the whole system on its head, if that makes sense.
Right. You made a very good point. And that is where I come to the point. You talk about, that it's your mission to provide unbeatable customer service in an industry where that customer typically comes last. Mm-hmm. Help us understand, why does the customer typically client comes last here? Because this is also giving a loophole to those people outside the system, and especially AI, that, listen, you are not getting your service. We are here. We will provide you quicker, faster, almost correct, get it vetted, but we will be the first ones to be able to provide it. Help us understand from both. How do you calibrate these two parts here?
So we talk a lot about unbeatable customer service internally at the firm. It's our number one core value, unbeatable customer service. And tied into that is, it's such a opportunity in the industry. We have such a competitive advantage just having this mantra over and over, which is, like, by the way, it's not a genius idea. We're just doing what everyone who's not in our industry does. Like every service industry, the customer comes first. Think about hospitality, hotels, Hyatt, Marriott, these major players where they are relying on repeat customers to come back and want to be a part of their, you want to have your Hyatt and Regency reward points. You want to go to Caesars in Las Vegas, Nevada, and they put them first You copy something like that, and your competitive advantage is freaky in our industry. So why does that happen in law? Because it can. Because the way traditionally law works in the civil industry, the civil side, is it's one and done. Meaning we are not focused on our industry has never been focused on the repeat customers. It's churn and burn. They advertise, grab the, let's just say, car crash injury, bring them in, process them through your assembly line, get them out the other end, and it's called, which is almost a little bit brash in my opinion, it's called churn, like churn. And these are human beings with physical injuries and impacts and changes on their lives. Human beings who may be disfigured for the rest of their lives. They lost maybe multiple years of the ability to engage in the workplace and build their skills. I mean, there's all these losses. And then we've got business owners just saying, let's churn them, churn them, churn them. It's about dollars, about profit. So there's not really been a challenge. It's just a simple opportunity. It's a way of reframing the concept. It reduces the so-called churn, right? But we don't care because what we gain is a huge competitive advantage. We don't have single customers. Our return rate on customers is in the double digits. And what I mean by that is we see a return rate as, let's just say, Ajay, you come in and you have an injury. We represent you. We give you unbeatable customer service. You have a wonderful experience. You feel you were heard. You feel you were represented. You feel your case was maximized. On the back end, anybody in your social network, especially in the era of social media, who you see someone posts that they had an injury, they're crushed. Hey, you may send them a private message. You should call my guy. My guy at Vanstone Injury is going to take care of you. Like, don't call anybody else. And that's what we're seeing is during our cases with our clients, we're getting 2-to-1 kickback, meaning for every client we bring in who gets the proper experience, we're getting at least 2 referrals from those individual clients. And I know, I was talking to the law firms, that's not normal. Now, are we saying yes to all of those cases? No, but they're opportunities. And that's basically how we view the process.
Right. So, talking of technology, what is it in technology wise that you have brought into your firm, still keeping the human angle intact for your clients?
Extreme accountability. And so what that means is when you talk about technology, typically people see technology as an opportunity to streamline let's go back to the word that some lawyers use, not me, churn. How do you increase your flow of customers, right? Just like if you own a restaurant, you want to know like how many turns can you get of a table during a service, right? So for us, we've switched that a little bit. And obviously we have a lot of efficiencies built in with our systems. We're fully operational. We are a paper-free office. You may send us paper, but we're not printing paper unless a court says we don't do e-filing, then I have to print there. That's it. But really what I care about is the extreme accountability. So what we've done is we've basically opened up our law firm to our customers. It's unheard of. Our clients have access, and we've developed an iPhone app that goes along with every client we represent, that they have full disclosure of their case. They know what's going on at all times. So like they are going to see if like nothing happens on their file for 30 days. They're going to see if no one's making notes in their system, no one's adding documents or sending letters. Now, mind you, we manage expectations in relation to the timeline of every case, but most law firms close those books because they don't want clients to see that sometimes nothing happens for 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months. Your case is just sitting there, and that doesn't make any sense. So there's this illusion that, oh, we're working on it. We're working on it. We're full transparency, extreme accountability. Every client can see exactly what's going on in their case at all times, and we message directly with them through their app. The app is just one component, and then we over communicate. And I've talked about this many times, but we over communicate through something that I call the no news update. And it's super simple and it's so silly, but we're going to call you no matter what, even if we've done not a single effing thing on your case. I'm calling you. I'm telling you we've done nothing, but guess what? Everything's okay. Things look good in your case. How are you doing? How are you feeling? How's treatment going? We are communicating at times where most lawyers want to huddle under a rock and hide because they don't want to be caught, doing nothing on a file. Not that we aren't doing anything, but the idea is that you have to be comfortable with the litigation process, that it can be slow, but still reaching out and just not be afraid to have a conversation with your client with the no news update. And it's fantastic. It works. It's essential to what we do. And it goes back to our extreme accountability and clients. We have actually, this is fun. And this, I think, is the most interesting stat we had. No, I have two interesting stats, but one of the most interesting stats from 2024, we had 0 clients fire our law firm. 0. That's insane. It's unheard of. We have over 670 cases. 0 fired our firm. And that means we're doing something right.
Right, right. That's very good, because the human part everywhere will finally succeed, especially with this whole technology part. But in terms of technology, Ryan, how do you see this future of legal technology? Are the law firms ready to adopt it, or is it going to be gate crashing by all the new technology that's coming in? How do you see it from here?
I think that it depends on how good the salespeople are at these tech companies, right? There's some good ones that really are good at sales, and they'll give you your free examples and people try it. But there's so much of this industry is unique. I really try to spend time looking outside of our industry to learn, because in our industry, it's so fragmented in the things that work. Like restaurants have to be kind of similar, right? Unless they have a killer location or a celebrity ownership, there's so much similar, a Chipotle versus a McDonald's versus a Burger King. Their processes are kind of congruous, Law is different. You may have a person who literally is like, I don't even send emails. I dictate, and then my secretary types up an email and then sends it, because I don't even have a keyboard, right? And there could be a multimillionaire bringing in $20 million a year. So it works for them. The challenge is going to be, like your question goes to, who really is now? Who has an advantage by bringing in tech? And I think it's the old guard really benefits the most, because they're the most capital heavy. They've got the biggest war chest, and they can make the biggest moves and investments and do things that at a large scale others can't. Because again, we're talking like my investment into our firm, even when we had a very small, it was mid 6 figures just to build out some of the things that we want, because our industry is not big. So we don't have super cheap technology, such as like a point of sale system for retail. Like you think of Square with the credit card swiping. Could you imagine if Square only had, 5,000 customers, how expensive their services would be? So that's what we're dealing with, is a highly expensive service. The industry is ready for it. We all want it, but it's the cost, it's the barriers to entry. And so the advantage goes to the people with the war chest and the people that are super small, that are super nimble, who can experiment and back away really quick because they don't have as much operational burden.
Right. One last question on personal injury is that it's a global world. A lot of firms are based in the US. A lot of people are using either their services or product in other parts of the world. Sitting in here in India, now bodily, I don't know, but if someone gets some product online and gets impacted by it negatively, or in terms of service, as I talked about the artificial intelligence, can someone sitting in any other part of the world, maybe in India, they can approach you and ask for some sort of redressal of their grievance in terms of personal injury law as per US, or do I have to file it here in India itself?
Great question. So it's a venue question. So venue, and it's also known, there's a few different ways to look at it. You have venue, you have choice of law. There's a lot of different aspects that come to what I can do with a claim that's a legit claim. So if you're in another country, typically here's how venue works. And this is sort of true in every state in the United States. And now, mind you, I'm not a lawyer. I don't have what's called an LLM. I don't have an international law license or anything like that. But venue is usually dictated out of the place the harm arose, meaning where can we address the wrongs that have been committed against me. And it's usually where the harm occurs. Secondarily, the analysis of sometimes is, well, I was harmed, let's just say I'm harmed in India, but the person who harmed me is from Michigan. Theoretically, there are situations where you can also have venue to the location of the person who caused the harm, because one, you should expect to answer for the harms that you cause wherever you cause them, but you should also be expected to answer for the harms you caused in the place you're seated, meaning your home. And the reason that analysis especially comes true with corporations, right? If you were harmed by Apple Corporation, who makes the iPhones, and we know Apple, right? You're harmed by Apple. But you're harmed by Apple. Your phone explodes in your pocket in New Delhi, right? So the idea is, what should you do with Apple? Well, India has its own laws that can redress that, especially if they're incorporated locally. But theoretically, they can also answer for their wrongs in Cupertino, California, right? So no, they can't call me for things that occur in India, but I am not an international lawyer, so I can't tell you exactly what India's laws are. Here's what we do see. I have many, many cases where, say, someone will come from another country or another state, and they will cause harm in Michigan. There's something called the Hague Convention, which allows us to extend the arm of the law in the United States to other countries, where we can actually have jurisdiction over individuals in certain other countries. That is something that can be very complicated. It depends on the country. You need a lot of assistance, but I hope that answers the question, that basically always look to where the harm arose and ask for legal advice locally.
Absolutely. There is much to understand about all these legal systems and legalities everywhere, especially in personal injury law. And for that, a lot of people may want to learn more about you, more from you, be your client as it works for them. So, what's the best way for people to connect with you, Ryan?
Well, if you want to hop on the phone, it's 855 Vanstone. That's the best way. You can also message us on all the social media platforms, but really 855 Vanstone. You can text us, you can email us, anything. You can call us. We're here. We're professional. We handle calls constantly, and we'll help people get in the right direction. If we're not the right fit, we'll get you somewhere that is.
Wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining
Thanks, Ajay.
us.
Appreciate your time.